Your eyes aren't deceiving you. I'm not flying American Airlines on this trip. Instead, I decided to try out Delta Airlines. On this Delta flight from LAX to DFW, I'm sitting in Delta's domestic first class. My seat is two-way, and I'm traveling on an Airbus A319. The Delta A319s are quite a bit older too. They average over 16 and a half years old. The first class cabin on the A319 is very small. It only has 3 rows, which totals up to 12 seats. Each seat is 21 inches wide and has 36 inches in pitch. Seeing the cabin for the first time, I was impressed. Delta's done a really good job updating and modernizing their fleet. I really like the Delta branding on these seats. The red against the blue looks really nice. Coming up to my seat in row 2, I noticed that Delta already had things waiting for us. They were a bottle of water, a blanket, and a pillow. I was really excited about the pillow because I've flown first class domestically in a couple other airlines and I've never received a pillow. It may seem small, but it just made the flying experience a lot more comfortable, even if it was under a 3-hour flight. Even though the cabin is very small, the seats are very comfortable and spacious. It doesn't feel like you're on a small aircraft at all. Let's take a look around. As you can tell, there's the armrest and there's a little section for your drinks to go on. And if you look in the front, you can see the charging station. It's a universal outlet and it's in a visible position. I'm not a fan of the outlets that are actually on the seat you're sitting on next to your feet. It makes it really hard to plug in. These are nice and visible, easy for use. Let's take a look up top. Delta's done a really good job with putting mood lighting in this plane. It kind of reminds me of the Boeing Sky interior, but I guess it's for Airbus. But look at the service unit, it's really nice and modern. It's a nice blue light around it. This is where your flight attendant call button's at, your lights at, and the air vents, but you wouldn't even tell. I don't even know what it looks like, but it looks really awesome. Another thing I love that Delta's doing that most airlines aren't is they're keeping the seat back TVs, but we'll talk about that later. The legroom on this seat is really good. If I didn't keep my backpack down there, I would be able to stretch fully out. I'm only 5'8", but I had plenty of room. The seat back's also really nice. It has a lot of different compartments, which I use to keep my iPhone, charging cables, my GoPro in, and it's a really nice thing to have. If I would have noticed the seat back a lot earlier, I would have thrown my camera bag up top in the overhead bin, but it is what it is. This is just a better view of the blanket, and abracadabra, the pillow, which was also very comfortable. Here's that Delta branding again. I'm actually a big fan of this and I think it looks really nice. What's your take on it? While I was geeking out the window trying to get some good footage of landing planes, I was pleasantly surprised when the flight attendant came and asked if I'd like a pre-departure beverage. I said yes and asked him what he had to offer. He told me he had a range of mixed drinks he could make me, beers, wines. I asked him if he had anything sparkling. He said yes, and he brought me back some Prosecco, which was pretty good. The plane hadn't even pushed back yet, and I was already impressed by Delta's flight attendant service. He asked me for a pre-departure beverage and was willing to make me a cocktail. That's pretty awesome. Like I said, I usually fly American first class, and pre-departure beverages are super hit and miss on that. I'm glad to see Delta is really taking charge on this. Slowly making our way around the seat, we're back at the armrest, which inside the armrest is where your tray table's at. We'll be coming back to the tray table a little bit later in the flight. Looks like this plane's getting on its way, so I'm going to let you enjoy this takeoff in the sunset skies of LAX, departing runway 24L. Shortly after takeoff, the flight attendants came around with these warm hot towels. The quality of the towels itself was pretty good. Once all the towels were collected, the flight attendant started the meal service. I was offered a drink and a snack of my choice. I went with the Jack and Coke and of course the Biscoff cookie. Even though it was early on in the flight, my phone was already dying. So I hooked it up to this easy charging access port and let it start to charge. Another big win for Delta, was the ability of me to connect to the Wi-Fi and message people on the ground for free. This is pretty awesome. So whether you're conducting business or just chatting with family and friends, you don't have to pay that $16 fee just to be able to do that. This was great on Delta's part. Now let's get to the PTVs. Like I said earlier in the review, Delta is one of the few domestic US airlines that's actually keeping these. Earlier in the flight, they came around and asked if we wanted any headphones, and I said yes, and we got these headphones in these Billboard branded packages. They were pretty decent, but it's better to bring your own. The entertainment selection was pretty good. The movies were pretty recent, the TV series were also pretty recent, and it was just very interactive. You could check out the type of plane that you were on, and also your flight progress. Another cool feature about it, it was just very informational about all the different amenities they had in different classes. You could check out the new Delta One seat. You could check out the domestic first class seat and other stuff like Delta Premium Select and Delta Comfort. It was actually really cool. They also highlighted major airports that Delta serves. And you could check out Delta's whole fleet on the entertainment system. So if you're an Aviation like me, you pretty much like that. I'm a big basketball fan myself, so I decided to watch one of the live games Delta provides during dinner. I still think live TV on an airplane is so awesome. Right before meal service, I also found out on the armrest that there's actually a little tray that pops out that you can also store your drinks on. Kind of like in the American 737 with this, I kind of don't really trust it. It's really too small, especially if both people are trying to use it. But hey, I guess at least it's there. Dinner is served all at once. You have your salad, your main dish, and your dessert all on one tray. The salad was really good. It was like a little slaw with sesame dressing on it. The main dish was a chicken with curry rice. The chicken was very moist. The vegetables had good flavor. The chicken also had good flavor, and you could kind of get a hint of the curried rice in there. Wasn't the best, but it also wasn't the worst. One thing I wish they did offer was a bread choice. That would have been really good with this meal. Also, another thing Delta can work on is their dessert. It comes in this little plastic bag which stuck to the tray table and was kind of hard to get off. I really wish Delta would have done this a little bit better with the dessert, and they could have served a cookie, but it could have came out after meal service was over, and it could have came out warm. But all in all, for a domestic flight under 3 hours, I think this meal was very adequate. With all the Delta branding on the plane, I was actually shocked to see that on the glassware, the only branding was on the bottom. A little bit after meal service had concluded, I was feeling like I wanted a coffee. So I hit the flight attendant button, and man, it was bright. Delta has teamed up with Starbucks, and the coffee was pretty good. Here are my final thoughts. Delta has done a great job. The interior looked great. They made an old plane with an average age of 16 years look really new and modern. The flight attendants were awesome. The level of service they provided us far exceeded my expectations. Coming back down to that pre-departure beverage, that was really nice. And I've spoken with a lot of loyal American Airlines customers, and that's one of their biggest gripes about American service, is it's not consistent with the pre-departure beverage. When you're coming in and paying a premium to sit up in the premium cabin, you expect to have the same high level of service every single flight, and that's something Delta has knocked out of the park. This is something it seems that Delta has emphasized with its flight attendants. Granted, this was only one flight, so we'll see how they do on the way back. As for the food, it looked really good. It tasted really good, and you know, it's I think the best you're gonna get on a short domestic flight. One of the things I do think Delta can emphasize and do a little bit better on is the dessert. Even if it's just a cookie, bringing it out on a plate and having the cookie be warm would be a step up. Well, that concludes this flight review for Delta Airlines flight in domestic first class from LAX to DFW. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, suggestions, questions, or you would like to point out something I did wrong, feel free to let me know in the comments. If you liked it, thumbs up. If you didn't like it, thumbs down. And if you want to subscribe and see more content like this, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, everyone.